Hi everyone, this is my Module 5 Theory Squishy Circuit build. So the first step of the engineering design process is to ask. So my question was, how can I build a successful squishy circuit? So the first and most important thing is I teach preschoolers, so I needed to make sure they understood what a circuit was and how it worked. So I showed them this What is Electricity video for kids, and then I also showed them the different types of circuits, and these were both, they put the verbiage and the language at the levels that my kids could understand. And then one of my kiddos actually brought me in a computer engineering for babies, which is a very simple way of talking about circuits. So it was really neat that I could tie it into something that they could relate to, and it was at their level. I also decided to do it in small groups because I figured with some of my kids are at different learning levels than others, so I figured differentiating the instruction would be a better idea and making sure that everybody understood at their own level and I could work with specific students individually. And I'm fortunate that I'm at a program where it's easy enough to break into small groups and work with them more on a one-on-one or one-on-three basis. Okay, so imagine, so I wanted my students to think, what are some good shapes and models you can build, and what would be a good use of electricity? So car, rocket ship, lightning bug, etc. So the picture here is just me modeling to one of my students how the circuits work. And so right here is the battery pack. And then we had the buzzer, which it makes a noise. You'll hear a couple slides from now what it sounds like. And just showing how the different colors of dough act. And I also did a little lesson with the insulating dough as well. So we planned out, this is just a rough drawing I did with some of my students. One of my kiddos said making a rocket ship. One said make a caterpillar, and one said make a flower. So the entire point was to either have the rocket make sound and the lights light up, or with a caterpillar having lights at the top of its head, with insulating dough in between the head and the body. And then with the flower having insulating dough between the stem and the flower, and then the wires and the petals, and the light in the middle. We ended up not doing the flower because I let them pick if they wanted which one they wanted to make, and all of my groups chose either a rocket ship or a caterpillar. So for the create aspect, so this is one of the caterpillars that we made. So over here you can see the lights turned on. You can see the little bit, You can see the little bit of insulating dough in between the green and the red. Here we're starting to build it, and then here is where the caterpillars started taking shape. So we basically made it so that the red wire was attached to the green and the blue wire was attached to the blue, and the insulating dough act as a barrier so that the electricity could flow through and create lights. We also made a rocket. My kids are in preschool and I'm also not the most artistic, so we made it work. I have the buzzer, the green dough here, which you can't really see, which I will talk about that later. The insulating dough, red dough, and some blue dough on the top, and these are the wings. And then here is the blue dough for the power, and we have the buzzer. So if you heard that really high-pitched shrieking, that is the buzzer activating, which was good. So how I would improve it, the caterpillar worked really well both times I did it. The rocket we only did once. We couldn't get the lights on the rocket to work because I felt like there wasn't enough green dough in between the buzzer and then the green dough and then the insulating dough and the body of the rocket. I feel like I needed to have more green dough. And I feel like the wings got in the way, and I would change the shape of the rocket to try to get the lights to work, because that all of my kids were really bummed about that we couldn't get the rocket lights to work, because that would have been a really cool effect. So the design tool for Jolly, um, I gave myself all twos. I felt like this lesson went really well. The one thing that I wanted my kids to be able to understand, and I put that on my lesson plan, was understanding circuits and how they worked. And I feel like that was accomplished because they said they understood that if we didn't have the white dough in between the different colors, the electricity wouldn't flow through and it wouldn't work because they were touching each other. So they really had a proper understanding of how it worked. It did show a real problem because we need electricity to survive and function. The students will relate because we talked about what do you use electricity for. We turn on the lights. We watch TV. We use it for our tablets. We charge things with it. Does the lesson allow for multiple acceptable creative approaches? Yes, I allowed my students to plan and talk about what they wanted to do. It does apply. We don't do a lot of science in where I work. The science curriculum isn't the greatest, so I've been trying to implement this so they get a broader scientific understanding. Does the lesson clearly use the engineering design process? Yes. Does the lesson use student-centered hands-on teaching? With playing with the dough, the students were able to model it and make their own. Technology, I used the videos and examples. They engaged in teamwork because they worked together to come up with ideas. Testing the solution, yes, we tested the results. And they communicated their designs by telling me what was happening and what was going on. Thank you so much for viewing my presentation.